Well, I'd like to welcome everybody once again to my crypt. Oh, gotta get the old sunglasses on, guys. There we go. I had to do it. I can't do it. I tried to do it for 3 seconds without sunglasses, and I can't do it, but that's okay. I just want to welcome you all once again to my crypt for another amazing interview, and it's going to be a great one. It's actually going to be on the book right here. I'm going to hold it up for you guys to see here. Ultimate Prey, the true story behind the Yosemite Sightseer Murders, written by Mr. Steven Sanzeri. An amazing book. I'm actually going through this book, reading it a third time because it is that good of a book, and it is a very in-depth book. So you definitely got to read this book a couple times because there's a lot of characters in the book, a lot of different twists in the book. So it's definitely one that you got to kind of read a couple times, but it is such an amazing story that it's a great, even going through it a third time, it's still an amazing book. I just really enjoy this book a lot. So I definitely recommend that if you have not read this book yet, I'm going to leave a description in the bottom of this video. Make sure you pick up this book and read it before you watch this video, because we're going to be talking very in depth about what's in this book, and it's going to be spoiler alert, all over the place. So definitely, if you have not read this book, pick it up, read it first, then come back and check out these interviews. We did part one with Steven Sanzeri, where we got to know him, got to hear a little bit about his past and what he's done in his life, and then I wanted to save part two so we could dive into this book. So there it is right there, Ultimate Prey. Definitely pick it up. So there we go. I just want to get that in there. And just one last little bit of business. I just want to remind everybody that I am also doing 2 radio shows a week now, and that is at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I got 2 shows a week. I'm on Saturday night, Eastern Standard Time at 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. And you can find me on Studio B. And then I'm also on Monday nights from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's in Studio A. So definitely, if you want to hear some great content from me and a lot of other great hosts on a lot of topics that we cannot cover here on YouTube because, they love to censor everything now, definitely go over to Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Check me out there and check out all the other great hosts. Great stuff there, and I think it's a place you're going to really enjoy it and get lots of great information. So just the last thing I wanted to say before I got my guest in here. So let me just go ahead here and bring in Mr. Steven Sanzeri. Welcome back once again to my crypt. Very excited to have you here for part 2 of our interview.
Oh, thank you. This is great. The first one I was really happy about, and you got my background, but here we roll with the Yosemite case.
Exactly. And as we talk quite a bit off of air, which I enjoy talking to you and learning about this case and asking questions. And as I've told people in the past, it's a really complex case. Like I said at the beginning here, I'm already in my third way going through the book a third time because it's so much to absorb, and there's so many moving parts, a lot of different characters in it, and it's just an incredible and shocking story in a lot of ways, and I'm just happy that we have you here to kind of break it down. So I definitely got some questions here that I just want to go through with you and, get your comments on it and stuff like that. I figured I usually don't write questions down, Steven, because I like to keep the interviews really organic and kind of let them go where they want to, but in this case, I had to write down some questions because I would forget so much. So we can definitely go through them, and then I'll just get what you think about, get your comments on stuff, and we can go through this case.
Sounds good.
Perfect. All righty here. So I'm just bringing up my notes here. All right. So let's just start. What year did the Yosemite Sightseer Murders, what did this all take place? When did this start all happening?
Took place February, Valentine's weekend in 1999, when Carol's son, her daughter Julie's son, and a friend from Argentina named Silvina Peloso had taken a trip from Eureka, California to Yosemite Park. And Silvina had never seen the snow, and it's a longtime family friend of the parents and such. And Julie was going to go to University of Pacific, UOP in Stockton, where she was going to cheerlead. She was a really good athlete and such. And they stopped there and did the college thing, and they moved on to Yosemite Park. And it was around February 13th. and they rented a hotel room at the Cedar Lodge, room 504, and we're going to enjoy themselves. And the park is not really crowded at that time, and
Right.
there's a few motels and hotels along the way. Cedar Lodge is located in El Portal, California, about 15 miles out of Yosemite Park, and they rented a room. And a few days later, they disappeared.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's where this starts. That's the story is it gets really sad as this story goes on. Like I mean, I can imagine what you went through, writing this book and having to remember all of this, and just remembering the whole case. Now, there's a lot of characters that are involved in this, so I mean, I had to write names down and stuff like that because it just gets. You got to kind of do that to keep track, for me at least. So I'm glad I wrote these down and went over them with you. Now, I do know that I do remember reading a book way back when called "I Know My Name Is Steven," which was a movie about a child that was abducted and stuff like that. It's something you can definitely check out if you guys are interested. I'm sure you can still find it. And it was a story about Steven Stainer. Now, can you let people know, because he's definitely crucial to this case, a little bit of history on who Steven Stainer was, and what's his story, and how he, what kind of is the deal with this guy?
Well, Steven Stainer was born in 1965, and family's living in Merced, California. Delbert and Kay Stainer were the parents. Kerry Stainer was the older brother, and I believe they had 5 people in the family. And in December of '72, Kenneth Parnell and Irvin Murphy, approached Stephen coming out of school, and they basically grabbed him and they kidnapped him.
Wow.
And what's interesting is that Irving and Kenneth Parnell worked in Yosemite Park. So that kind of goes back to where we, forward to Kerry Stainer.
Right.
And they kidnapped him and took him up to Mendocino County and up in Ukiah and such, and where Stephen was raped. He was held for several years, basically till about 1980, and he accepted the name of Dennis Parnell as the son of Kenneth Parnell, and he was in regular school and everything, and he didn't try to escape or do anything. But February of 1980, Kenneth Parnell sent out Stephen with another person, and they basically talked. I say kidnapped. They talked this Timothy White to follow them, and brought him back to Kenneth Parnell's home, and where he was going to be raped and abused and such. But Steven Stainer didn't like this. He was now older. Kenneth Parnell was into younger kids. And so one day, Steven Stainer decided to take Timmy White, and they took off down the highway. And they were stopped by local sheriff's department, or police, law enforcement. And that's when he said, "I know my name is Steven." And I mean, the kid's a hero,
Mm-hmm.
So from there, they ended up arresting Kenneth Parnell and the other people involved. But there's some things about the justice wasn't served. I mean, they only did a few years here and there, but
Really? Wow.
yeah. And what's interesting is that Mike Eccles had wrote the book "I Know My Name Is Steven." I know my name is my first name is Steven, and it's interesting because he was involved in NAMBLA, which is the North American Man-Boy Love Association.
Okay.
And he had infiltrated that group, to maybe do something about these pedophiles and such. But after the book and the movie came out, it was originally a 2-part series.
Right.
That ended up being a major motion picture for television. Is that Kenneth Parnell went to jail, and he went to jail for indecent exposure.
Okay.
And he died in jail in January 2008. He was, I think he was a pedophile, it's my opinion.
Right.
But anywho,
did you ever get a chance to speak to him Did you ever reach out, try to
No,
talk to
no,
him, or
no, I never did. Now it's way past my investigation and such, you know.
okay?
Um, but he died in jail in 2008 from a heart attack. But he was in there from decent exposure, which kind of tells me he was kind of screwy anyway.
Right, right, for sure.
But what's really sad about this case is, you know, in 1989, you know, Stephen died in a motorcycle crash. It was a hit and run down in Merced County. But that Timmy White became a police officer, a sheriff's deputy with LA County Sheriff's Department. But at 35 years old, he died of a heart attack.
Yeah, that
Just
yeah,
could have been the stress from the being back then. But Steven Sanzeri's a hero. He said this isn't going to happen to somebody else,
right.
and that's when he took Timmy White, and they found some cops.
Wow, yeah, thank God. Yeah, thank God that he did too, right? Like, I mean,
Yeah, sure
that's the
did.
thing. That's the thing. I just want to let people know. Like, this book is when you start diving into it, it's just what the things you uncover and kind of stumble into and stuff like that is it's shocking. When I read it, I was just like, and it really was. It was a page turner. This book, I couldn't put it down. I remember when I first got it, I started reading it, and the next thing I know, it's like 3 hours later, and I'm almost halfway through and I'm just going through it because I was just like, this is insane, this book, like what was going on and stuff. So yeah, definitely. Now to move on, because and I know we have a lot of characters to cover, so we're gonna kind of chug along, like move along here. And if you want to fill in anything in between, by all means, Stephen, go ahead and do it, because I'm sure I'm missing a few things along the way here, and so I'm hoping that I got most of the points, the bulletin points that we can hit to keep it going and keep the story going. Now, I do know that you, from reading the book, that you did get involved in the case, posting bond for a guy named Paul Chandler Jr. Is that correct? And how did that all come about?
No, you're correct. His actual name was Paul Lecky Candler
Candler,
Jr.
sorry,
But his
Candler.
no, but you are correct because he has several AKAs, and one of them was Chandler.
Chandler, right, right.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah. I posted bond November of 1998 on this guy, and it was for pulling a weapon out and basically attempted murder, but they would call it an assault. When he had approached the secretary of a guy named Orb Hatton, and Orb Hatton was a former narcotics cop out of Modesto PD, and he retired, owned a real estate agency up in Lake Don Pedro. And Candler went to the real estate office and called him out via his secretary. And or being, full of spit and vinegar, and being a retired cop, was armed. And they were supposed to meet up in Chinese campus, Tuolumne County. It's a little road off of there somewhere. And Candler's truck was parked there. And when Orb pulled up, Candler jumped out, and Orb jumped out, and they drew down on each other. And Candler took off in a little pursuit. And Candler rolls his car. But what's interesting is that when I bailed Candler out, they didn't charge him with child endangerment, even though his 10-year-old son was in there. Candler was
Really?
drunk, and he rolled the vehicle,
Wow.
and the kid broke a couple fingers. So I ended up bailing Paul Candler out of Tuolumne County Jail in November '98.
Wow,
And
and he never got charged, eh? Like for
yeah,
endangering a child.
that's when it kind of, I didn't read into it then, but later on, I was like, this guy's been protected, So he gets booked and everything. I bail him out, but when I bail him out, he come out of the behind the door and stuff, and this guy's attitude just sucked. I mean, a total, prison guy, everything else. I learned of his criminal history, but they put enough collateral up on the bond. I wasn't too worried about this guy. I could probably find him. And then within a few months, this guy jumps bond on me, and I ended up chasing him down through Alabama.
Oh, right, right. Yeah, that's another crazy part of the book too, where it all begins, kind of where this all starts. Now, how does he become involved in this case with the Yosemite Sightseer Murders? Like, how does he start? Like, kind of, can you explain how he becomes involved in this and where he kind of fits in?
I'm speculating on some things.
Okay.
He was a heavy player in the meth industry and the drugs and everything up in that area. And we can talk about Mariposa later on, and
For sure,
how
we
the
will,
sheriffs
yes.
and everybody was involved in drugs and killed their own deputy and such. But he was a badass. He was a tough guy. He'd done about 18 years in state prison already. And like I said, Rick, earlier, and nobody runs from California to Alabama. They usually go the other way.
Right.
So we felt he was protected, and I befriended his stepdaughter and Candler's girlfriend, Barbara Dobbins.
Right.
She moved to Alabama, and the stepdaughter said that Barbara owed her money. So one day I got a call, and I got a phone number, and I called back to Summerton, Alabama, and that's in Jefferson County, and it checked out. There was a vehicle there parked, and it had California license plates in Alabama, and the car was a red Datsun or Toyota, and so I identified that. So my partner Rick James and I, God rest his soul, great bounty hunting partner, we took a red eye the next day. It was like June 6th, 1999, and flew back to Alabama, and so that's when the chase began on that.
Oh, for sure, yeah, and a crazy chase too. I can't wait till we get into some of this stuff because what you go through, Steven, is incredible. And as I said, what you stumble into, which we definitely will cover in Mariposa as we go along here, because that is another that's crazy too. I don't know what else to say. It's just crazy what you kind of how this goes here. So we kind of covered that now. Now I'm just checking my notes here. So I want to make sure I hit everything because it's very important. Now, how does Candler tie into Stainer? Like, how did these two become kind of together in this story? How does that come about from what you found out?
I didn't find out things till even a year or so later. Candler was arm's length to whatever drug trades were going on around Yosemite and Mariposa and the meth and coke or what have you.
Right.
And he didn't pop up on the radar for anybody. But before I went to Alabama, I had Tuolumne County detectives come over because even though it was a Mariposa County case, it happened in Yosemite, and we got 3 dead, women savagely murdered. I mean, it just makes me sick.
Right.
Is that I had these detectives come to my house in Murphy's, California, and I briefed them and said, "Hey, I'm going back to Alabama, and this guy's good for this." And they, said blah blah blah, and I said, make sure he's an NCIC, which is the National Criminal Information Center. And when somebody has a felony warrant, and as long as you promise to extradite, that agency promises to extradite, they'll put him in the system. And so if he gets popped in New Jersey or New York or whatever, that you promise to extradite this guy back.
Okay.
Well, I later found out after we got back there is that Candler was only put into the 7 western states of the NCIC. So we got to Alabama, and we spotted him in Warrior, Alabama. We drove right by. I mean, like I told you, he dove in the car, and there was a little pursuit and stuff before he found him.
Right.
Is that we couldn't get any help from local agencies back there because he wasn't in NCIC nationally, and there's no promise to extradite. So you're on your own, and that's how the chase started in Alabama.
Right. Yeah. And is that normal? Like, is that really abnormal for him not to be in the NCIC that you just mentioned? Is that like he should have been in there? Well, like that's weird, right? That he wasn't in there properly.
You know what? Probably more so now, even back 20 years ago. And the case was 21 years old now.
Right.
Is that it's about money. I mean,
course.
I had an extradition business for 7 years, and I had to extradite people as a private company and such. But yeah, it's about bringing the guy back. You got to send a couple deputies, this and that, maybe a few $1,000s. But the interesting thing is, after we arrested Candler in Alabama, he fought extradition. He didn't waive his rights for extradition. So California had to get a governor's warrant to bring him back, and that's what they had to do because he wasn't going to come back. Like when we hit the house on June 7th around midnight, the deputies in Jefferson County had our wanted posters and such, and said now he's the most wanted guy in Alabama.
Right.
But 8 hours before that, I was on the phone with FBI agent Barnes out of San Francisco, which is interesting because I was in the shower when we were looking for him, and my partner said the FBI called, and I'm like, yeah, this is a joke, right? But I had briefed Tuolumne County, and this is the biggest case in California at the time. That they were definitely watching me. They followed me back there. So, not to give the FBI a black eye because there's some good guys in there,
right.
But they kind of let me loose and kind of, followed me around to see how I was going to go. And then we ended up physically grabbing the guy on June 7th, which turned into June 8th. It was a 42-hour manhunt in Alabama.
Right. Yeah, and we're definitely going to be looking into that too, because I remember in the book when they were talking, how you were talking about how the FBI was not happy that you had these wanted posters all up and stuff like that around town. And I was like, okay, that doesn't make sense. You think that they would be wanting all of these posters up to try to help find this guy? So you're definitely in the book. It's leading the way to show that this guy, I think, was definitely protected in some form or another. And I think as people read the book and even if they hear this interview and stuff, they're going to see that it's not a stretch to think that there was something really shady going on here. So yeah, like definitely, yeah, it's an amazing part of the book. Now, trying to keep on track with the murders here, like, so we covered that. Now let me just check here because there is a part that I want to make sure that I find right here very important because now we were talking about how they were witnessed by by a lady of the name of Rhonda Dunn. She spots Stainer and Candler together. Can you kind of explain like how this came about, like how she saw them together, and kind of where this all leads?
Yeah, Rhonda Dunn is very interesting. She's a matter of fact, she's a respiratory therapist out of Northwestern University in Chicago, and she has a photographic memory, and I figured that out right away. And my contact with Rhonda was after the Modesto Bee and Mike Mooney wrote a story. This is kind of before anybody knew I was chasing Candler. She described Paul Candler, Kerry Stainer, and the guy Eugene Dykes, Mick Larvick's half brother, which we'll get into later,
Okay.
of following her around at the Cedar Lodge. Her and her mother had flown out for vacation for a week or so into Yosemite, but after she was chased around, her and her mother checked out the next day. And as a matter of fact, she ended up in Chicago a couple weeks later, at home, and the FBI had knocked on her door and they actually seized her computers. But she saw and she identified Stainer, Candler, and Eugene Dykes together. And we figured Paul Candler was the ringleader. But like I said, he was just, he was like a ghost. He'd appear here and there, and I got other witnesses that identify him. But in the newspaper article with the Modesto Bee, she described the guy she saw that she says it looked like Cornelius from Planet of the Apes. He was bow-legged, wore cowboy boots, Levi's, and a black shirt. When I bailed Candler out of Tuolumne County in November, that's exactly what he was wearing, and he was bow-legged and such. And she described a she-devil tattoo on his forearm, and Candler had a she-devil tattoo on his forearm. So I knew she was good to go.
Right.
That's when I wrote an 18-page report to the FBI task force in Sonora when they set up a command center to find the women, is that they had over 1,000 leads from people who saw them here, they saw them there, this and that, going to the shops, doing whatever. And as a former police officer in the Bay Area and a local bounty hunter and bail bondsman for 12 years, my 18-page report fell on deaf ears.
Really?
And so what I did is that I contacted the attorney, Mr. Angel, for the Carringtons, which was Francis and Carol Carrington, the grandparents of Jolie and the parents of Carol's son, the mother. And Mr. Carrington called me back within an hour, and we started talking. And I said, I can help you out. I'm not going to charge you, but this thing really stinks to high heaven.
Right.
And it's interesting. Mr. Carrington owned a strip mall in Fultondale, Alabama. Now he lives in Eureka, California. And I thought that was interesting. And he knew the chief of police there. Mr. Carrington, great guy, great family, was worth a lot of money. His grandfather found Santa Rosa. I mean, he's California, royalty in some ways.
For sure.
So when I hooked up with the Carringtons, I pretty much had carte blanche, at least from the family, to go after this case.
All right, okay. That is super interesting actually, and wow, yeah, and then that's the thing. Like I remember that in the book that she does, like she was basically saw these guys together, and at the Cedar Lodge and stuff like that because they were kind of vacationing, and that's kind of where this all starts. It kind of stinks all the way through the whole thing, as you just said. Like I mean, there's so many red flags that start flying up as you read along. And how long, how long after they were at the Cedar Lodge, how long till they were reported missing? The three ladies were reported missing. About how long after?
what happened was is Jen's son, is Jens son, Carol's husband, Julie's father. They're supposed to meet at SFO San Francisco Airport on the I believe it was the 17th, 16th, 17th. So it
Right.
was the Monday or Tuesday after Valentine's weekend. And Carol was she was meticulous. She ran a house for underprivileged, mentally challenged adults. I mean, really, just great society woman. And she didn't miss appointments. I mean, she didn't. She was spot on.
Right.
And when they didn't show up at SFO, the husband was concerned.
Right. Yeah.
So he
Right.
called
Right.
local San Francisco PD and on the way up to Mariposa. And within a couple of days, they had a full search and rescue operation up around Yosemite and Mariposa. I mean, you got to remember, so the roads are really terrible up there off Highway 49 and such. And they thought maybe they went off of a slick road, icy road, or ended up over the cliff into the river or something. And so it was a huge search and rescue operation, but they didn't find the car or the girls.
Wow. And it was a huge search and rescue. And I'm saying, like, and how long did the search and rescue last for? Like, do you know about approximately how long they were trying to find um any sign of them or anything like that? Like, was it how big of a was? I imagine it was a huge search, right? Because I can imagine the husband made sure of that they had a lot of people, boots on the ground.
Yeah, and Mr. Carrington was very prominent, and Jen's son ran one of the businesses for him. Um, oh, they had like 4 or 5 birds up. They had snowmobiles. They had the whole 9 yards.
Wow, and found
And
nothing.
it's I think it was probably about 4 or 5 days,
Okay.
given the weather situation and such, that they called off the search for anybody going over a cliff or an accident or anything else,
Right. Right.
because they would have found them. I mean, they really scoured the place, and that's when it became foul play, and the FBI got involved.
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah. Especially if there's no sign of them. Right. Like that's crazy.
Right.
Now, how long? Because I remember reading in the book that it was probably about. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. It was about a month later that a gentleman was, I think, not hitch. Why do I want to say that? He was hiking through the woods. A fellow by the name, I think, of Jim Porter, if I'm remembering from the book, and he was hiking along and he come across their car that was completely burned out and stuff like that. Can you explain what happened there and what they all found when they found this car and stuff? Like, kind of let us know what's going on with this.
Yeah, Jim Porter was out. I think he was out there, squirrel hunting or something with his dog, and he came across a car that was burned out, and it was off of Highway 108. And the road going off Highway 108 up by Strawberry, Tuolumne County, was called Wheeler Road. And Wheeler Road, it's I don't know the national forest number or such, but it's not something that you just drive from anywhere, just drive down that road.
Right.
Now that's also sparked our interest, was that you would have had to have known to go there to burn a car, nobody'd see it, and they torched it good. I mean, people would have seen smoke and everything. Um, and that's when he, with the case and stuff, he called the FBI or the Turnap task force in Sonora, and they went up there and they found the car, and they found 2 bodies in the trunk of the car that were unidentifiable at the time.
Oh, yeah. That was a really sad part for me too. Like, I
Yeah,
mean,
it really
it
was.
was. Yeah. When I read that, I was like, oh, because I was kind of like, you know, thinking like what this gentleman like. I don't know what I would do if I came across something like that. Like, I mean, to be honest, that is something I hope I never do come across. So just to come along and find a car like that, and then to find out that there was 2 bodies in the trunk. Now, did they? How long did it take them to identify the bodies in the trunk? Do you know? And who were the 2 victims in the trunk when they finally worked it and figured it out?
I'm not sure how long it took. A few days, dental records, things like that, and they could get
Okay.
all that from the family because we already have a case.
Right.
So they identified the bodies as Carol Sun and Silvina Peloso.
Wow. Okay. I'm speechless. I really am. Like I'm thinking about this, and it's upsetting just to, and then especially after reading the book, and I know all of what's going on. So yeah, so they find the 2 bodies now. So then we have a third lady still missing. Um, no sign of her. They got the 2 bodies now. How long till? Because I know in the book that it was about 3 weeks later that they found Julie. Now, what was the condition that they found Julie in at the time? Like, when they discovered her body? Where did they discover it, kind of thing? Like, can you kind of let people know that part of the story, like where they found
Sure.
her, stuff like that?
Yeah, there's a caveat to this too. Is um, within a couple of weeks of the girls missing, a gal named Rachel Lou Campbell had which found or what have you, uh, a billfold. Actually, I should digress. It was somebody. I think it was a kid. Found a billfold in Modesto, which is about 2 hours away from
Right.
Mariposa in Modesto, and it had Carol's son's credit cards, some other things, and they ended up arresting a gal named Rachel Lou Campbell. At least brought her in because she had attempted to use those credit cards.
Oh, really? Okay.
So the that sparked the FBI into that. There's more people involved, maybe. I mean, you got two different locations a couple hours away, but the FBI received. This is to respond to your question about Julie's son.
Okay.
There's a map, and I think I sent it to you. We could put it up later.
Yeah, I definitely will, for sure.
Yeah, in this map, it doesn't match Kerry Stainer's handwriting, and he said he had somebody else lick the stamps and the envelope because he's been watching. He's like a crime DNA. He watches all that crap. That it said, "quote We had fun with this one," and the key was we. Now, this is my first indication is that there was other people involved besides Kerry Stainer, and there was. And there's a map, and the map showed Lake Don Pedro, very, very loosely drawn, and a body down at the bottom. And that's where they found Julie's son about 6 weeks after the car was found up in Wheeler Road. And Julie was partially decapitated.
Wow.
And it was down on the shore. But what's interesting is Candler's last address was about a quarter mile by boat to this crime scene where Julie was found, or 2 miles around Moccasin back on 49. And it's a pull-out lookout area. And if you hike down there, that's where they found Julie. And Kerry Stainer had sent a map to tell him where her body was.
Wow. Yeah, and as you said, Stephen, that's the key thing too, is that he said we. So when
We,
he says
yeah.
we, I mean that's no, to me that was a big red. When I saw that, I was like, okay, there is definitely. I always suspected there was more than one person involved in this, but this kind of confirms it, right from him. So I mean, I don't think that was any type of accident that he wrote we, and it's really shocking too that he's so bold about it too, right? Like, I mean, I don't. It's
Well,
just,
there's a reason why. We go back to Steven Stainer when he gets there's a book, and then there's a television movie that becomes a major motion picture. And if you look at pictures of Kerry Stainer after they found his brother came back, that he's scowling in the back. He's not happy for his brother. His brother's getting all this attention, which is rightfully so. And so after Kerry was arrested up at Laguna de Sal, I'm jumping ahead, the nudist colony up in Winton, California by Sacramento, is when Jeff Reineck, the FBI agent, who did a great job, Kerry, said, hey, and he said this to Ted Rollins with KTVU, with the first reported interview him, is that, hey, I want to be famous like my brother.
right.
So Kerry wanted the attention.
Right. So that does, then once you find that out, it kind of explains everything, right? Like why,
Right.
like it makes sense when you see, because he does scowl. You can definitely see
yeah.
it, and
He does.
he's not happy that his brother's getting all this attention. So he wants to be famous too. So then it makes sense why he's kind of wants to come forward, because he wants the attention too. And I don't think he cared how he got the attention. He just wanted the attention like his brother got. And
Correct.
so, I mean, it's a sick way to go about it, but I mean, we're not dealing, I mean, shocking stuff. Now, oh wow. So I'm just going through my notes here, Steven, because this is perfect, because I at least I'm staying on track here, because I got so many questions that I can bounce around with about this case. Now, I do know that when we were talking, that you said that an important part of the case was, because I asked you, was there any other murders that were reported around that time? And then we were kind of talking how there was another murder reported around that time with a female victim, which you said was probably an important part of the case, that there wasn't just these three, there was actually a fourth. Can you kind of explain to people what about this?
Oh, absolutely. My partner Rick and I were in Modesto on another bounty hunt at one time, right around the time Candler, and I just got a phone call from Candler too, which is interesting. Is that to digress? He lived about a quarter mile from the lake, and there's a little boat ramp there, Don Pedro, and he figured Julie's body's right across the water. But he lived in his sister's home in Moccasin, and it's off of 120, it's Grizzly Road. And mysteriously, when he called me, and it was out of the blue, he said, "Hell, the cops are after me. They think I burned my sister's house down and such." And okay, fine. What do you need? And, he didn't jump on at that time.
Right.
Later on, we went to the house after we're chasing him and such, and we hiked down this little hill, and you can see the grass. There's a little chain across the driveway. It dropped down, and you can see there was no cars been across it for a while because there's foliage growing up in the gravel and such. And the back part of the garage was totally torched. And so I got a hold of Cal Fire out of Tuolumne County, and they said they responded to a fire there. And my guess is that they had Julie there or whatever, and they tried to burn the evidence up.
Okay.
That and go back to, I'm sorry, digress back to that question a little bit because I just lost
Oh no,
thought.
no, yeah, we were just talking about how there was, because I was asking you if there was and I do remember from doing my research that there was a fourth victim, and we were
Oh yeah, going to that.
yeah, and we were taking notes and stuff. The fourth victim, Joey Armstrong, like I was kind of putting bulletin points to kind of jog your memory because, like I said, it's a lot to remember. So
So Candler, that's when we lost Candler. His PO box had been shut down, and we didn't know where he was at. And then within about 2 to 3 weeks, they find Joey Armstrong's body, a fourth victim, number
right.
4, outside of Yosemite. And Joey was a naturalist, beautiful blonde gal, took kids out on hikes and all that. And they found her her head decapitated right across from them, Forrestra. And that's when the FBI came out, and they had egg on their faces. They announced on June 7th, we arrested Candler in Alabama. On June 8th, they find this Dr. Catherine Wong. And this is where you go to with Candler and such up in Bear Valley, which is Mount Reba Ski Resort. Well, Candler lived 30 minutes from Bear Valley on Highway 4, and there's one way up there. In the wintertime, you can't even get over Evans Pass into Carson City or Minden. And when Rick and I were bounty hunting in Modesto, it came on the news, and I said, "Rick, something screwy with this, And that was late February of 1999. And so here we go, June 7th, we get Candler. We chased him June 8th. I think we arrested him. We arrested him on June 8th. No, we arrested Candler on June 7th. June 8th, it comes all over the news. They find this doctor from Santa Clara County. They find her body in Mount Reba. Now, when we arrested Candler in Alabama, and I was briefed by the lieutenant and stuff, and we took off. But Birmingham FBI was on their way to interview Candler. And Candler at that time went from nobody to the #1 manhunt for law enforcement in Alabama. And so we knew there was power, but the people were involved in it, whether they're covering him up or not, is that we come from California with a warrant and such, and we get dissed. And now he's an NCIC. And of course, that happened after I talked to Deputy District Attorney to get the NCIC nationally. And the day after we arrest Candler, they find the body where he had lived, had a house, identified at the gas station, 30 minutes away from Bear Valley. They find Dr. Catherine Wong's body.
Wow.
So we believe 100% that he gave the FBI Dr. Wong's body, and that he was involved in that. 6 months later, Matt Struck, who was a deputy in Alpine County, he's the one who was in charge of that case. And he came and we had a talk. We drove the Maloney's for some privacy, and he said that it was a homicide. And it was interesting. There was no publicity except one article. And, if you got a ski resort in an area and all this kind of stuff, is they don't want bad publicity, like people getting murdered on ski slopes, because you know what? They're going to lose a lot of money. I wouldn't bring my kid up there,
exactly,
to ski. And they said that Catherine Wong was either killed by a coyote, cougar, or bear that chased her down on her skis. That was the narrative.
Oh my God.
And Matt Struck told me is that when they took the body into the sheriff's department, and it was skeletal remains after 6 months,
right,
is that they could see tool marks around the neck where the neck had been cut.
wow.
And this guy wasn't just hillbilly up in Podunk 30 Department agency. He was actually 11 years with the LASO, so he'd seen homicides. This guy was an educated police officer.
Right.
And of course, they let him go about a month later after that.
They let him go.
So his narrative was following our narrative, and we're in Alabama, and a day later, all of a sudden they find Catherine Wong's body 30 minutes from where Candler lived. I mean, really?
Yeah.
I mean, right, it was right in our faces.
It is right in your faces. I can't believe that they say that it's coyotes that did it and stuff like that. Like really, that's the best that they could come up with. And
you know, I've never heard of a bear or a mountain lion or anything chasing down somebody on skis at 40 miles an hour.
Well,
I mean, it doesn't happen.
And leaving tool marks, don't forget, because
that's the thing. Yeah, and what's interesting too is Matt Struck told me that when they found the body, they found, it was kind of scattered, but it looked like that it was laid down in like branches or like almost like a kind of a bed,
right?
Softening area in the woods where, she might have been, I'm saying raped. I don't know for sure, but where it happened, it looks like it was kind of set up and man-made with the foliage.
Wow. Yeah. Well, they probably want to tell people that the bear made it. Like
yeah. Oh yeah, Yogi.
Yogi. that's funny actually. I don't mean to laugh. But
I know we don't mean to laugh, but they gotta have some humor.
Yeah,
anyway.
I mean it's so dark. That's the one thing I can say about the whole story. And when I was reading the book, I was just like, wow, this is so dark. Like, and you don't want to believe that stuff like this is going on. We all know it does, but I mean, when you start reading about it and then talking about it to somebody that that like you that went through it and was part of the investigation, it just really hits you like hard because you're like, wow, there's some really big dirtbags out there. Like, I mean, that and a lot of crazy stuff going on. So. Yeah, I mean that was a big part. I remember when the fourth victim, to me I was just like, wow, there's like, and who knows if there's other victims that nobody knows about, right? Like these are just the ones that we know about. So.
Oh no, I mean if you look at like David Pilates, I mean with the 411 missing people, and I mean if you look at Tuolumne County, there's been quite a few people that have been missing up there. They'll find a car and there's a camera and the car keys, and they've never found them.
Right.
I looked at a couple of those cases.
Yeah.
That whole group up there, it's the meth group and the drugs and everything. And then, a lot of them are being protected. There's a lot of money in drugs. Like I said, every country that's successful has a major illegal drug trade, and it goes for the same as California, which is the sixth largest economy in the world.
Exactly.
So, and we can go back to the Contras and Mariposa and all that stuff later, but these guys are being protected.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't take long even when you start looking into this case. That was I just realized that. I'm like, that's where I just logically went to. I'm like, if this was anybody else, it wouldn't have happened this way. Like somebody was protecting somebody, and to me, it was very obvious when you start getting into the story. So now I'm just going, like I said, I'm just going to keep checking my notes, Steven. And if you want to fill anything in, please do, because I mean, like I said, I just want to hit the bullet points because I want to try to make sure that I hit all the important parts because, like I said, it's an amazing book, and definitely guys, make sure you pick it up and read it because it is an amazing read. I'm just keep saying that because I enjoyed it that much, and it's something you want to look into, and it just keeps getting more deeper and deeper the more that you kind of research into it. So, now what I want to ask you, so now, so we know that Stater, you kind of already answered that, but he doesn't say that he doesn't, when he gets arrested, try to claim that he's innocent or anything, or does he confess? Or does he ask for a lawyer? Like, what happens after they arrest him? Like, what happens?
Well, you know what, I don't know if he's brazen or stupid or both, but one of the first things he asks for with Jeff Reineck from the FBI was, "I'll talk to you if you give me child porn."
Oh my God!
That's what he said.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, he's a freak. He was impotent. He was only he could only get aroused from prepubescent women. My partner Rick and I, we interviewed a very short time as a former girlfriend down at Clovis by Fresno, and she gave us a couple of things too. He was just, not a normal guy, and didn't show any signs of the. He was a loner in high school. We researched all this kind of stuff, and you can go ahead and profile this guy all day. But when he murdered Joey Armstrong, that was the only murder he did by himself. They
Okay.
got the tire tracks. They got this, that thing is totally lock solid.
Right, and oh,
Uh,
that's a good point. Let's talk about the tire tracks. So, how did they actually narrow down on that? Because I remember in the book they discussed that the tire tracks, he had three different like tires on his vehicle, and it kind of led up to the like kind of explain the tire tracks. That's a good point because that's how they kind of honed in on this guy.
well, it started off when somebody went by to check on her. I mean, I don't know if it was a ranger or whatever, and she wasn't around. And he kind of entered the house, and the house was totally like in shambles. Like there was a fight, there was something went on there. And he went out there and looked, and he walked along, and where the creek was from her little cabin in Forestra wasn't that far, maybe 100 yards, and that's when he found the body on one side of the creek and the head on the other, which wasn't. I never mentioned in my book. I don't think. I mean, it wasn't even public knowledge, and it was something I did, maybe I didn't need to say it or whatever, but it's a fact now. Um, so when the FBI went out and took impressions of the tire tracks, one of the tires was totally different, and they had an idea, and they looked around and they matched the other ones up that were kind of standard for that. Um, it was an international scout, I believe.
Okay.
And so they went from there, and they don't reuse Stainer. I mean, when the girls were missing and such, Stainer was actually employed by the FBI to go into the room, which I still can't believe, to help clean up this or that.
Mm-hmm.
So they had the killer in their hands. And then later on they stopped him or confronted him down at Merced River, and he was a nudist guy smoking weed and reading some book, but he's reading a book about morbidity and serial killers, weird shit.
Yeah, definitely. Wow.
So and, months later, after they found Joey and they did this and that, and they went to find him, and he lived above the restaurant as a handyman at Cedar Lodge,
Oh,
and
right, right.
he was gone. And so somebody on the news and who watched KCRA in Sacramento, whatever, said, "Hey, this guy's at the nudist colony." That's when they hooked him up a few months later up there. So they kind of let this guy, run free and do this and that. But they had no evidence at the time.
Right, right.
But yeah, he confessed to Jeff Reinick, but that doesn't mean anything. He just wants to be
Exactly.
famous,
That's what I was gonna
So
say.
take that as you will. But when I interviewed Mayor Sabatino, God rest his soul, great guy, at the Cedar Lodge, he had stayed there with the gal, and he identified Candler and Dyke,
Okay.
Eugene Dykes, and Stainer at the door. And when they, when and his girlfriend or whatever answered the door, he was in the back, and he recognized them.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
and he was a good witness. I interviewed him in Modesto. Is that there was more than one person involved, because Kerry wasn't like a tough guy,
Okay.
and I don't think he's a serial killer type. And one thing you got to remember is even though we have some decapitations and stuff, is that Carol's son was a fighter, tough broad. I mean, she was an animal. There's no way one guy's going to go in there with a gun and tie up three women and kill them. It doesn't.
Right.
It's not going to happen.
Right.
She would have fought like hell.
That's what
And
I thought. That's what I thought
listen,
too. I was like, there's
yeah,
no way that one guy was good. Yeah, I always. That's why I always thought there's not one guy just doing that. Like I just always
right,
thought like, how is he doing this if it's one person? He's holding the gun. He's trying to tie them up,
right.
and they're not fighting. Like obviously they're fighting for their life. So I mean, it just makes logical sense to me that there's more. This is a group effort. Definitely.
Right. Everybody that saw Candler or Dykes, and like I said, no, Rhonda Dunn's like one of the only people that identified Candler, except for the mayor,
Right.
is that there was always more than one person.
For sure.
Standard might knock on the door, and he's the handyman, and so he's comfortable with his identity and his employment there, and he probably has a room key to everything. But he was never alone,
Right.
and so all of a sudden now he's alone. And it doesn't make sense.
Oh yeah, for sure. I agree. Like, and so now the next bullet point that I have that I wanted to hit with you with, like, this is great stuff. Thank you so much, Stephen, for doing this because I really enjoying our interviews. I really am. Like, this is great stuff, and I love having you explain it and kind of break it down because it's one thing to read a book, but then it's one thing to actually get to talk to you and get your actual take on it, what was going on and stuff like that. So I really want to thank you again for doing this. Having a great time interviewing you for sure. Now, the next bullet point I have is that now Paul ends up jumping on his $25,000 bail bond and ends up in Alabama, which is when we were talking earlier how Alabama comes into this. So bear with us, guys. This all kind of leads together. So can you explain how you found that out and stuff? So after he jumps on his 25,000, I think it was 25,000, or is it 250,000? You'll have to correct me.
No, it was 25,000.
25,000, which is a lot. I think I saw that number. I was like, wow, like that's a lot to me, anyway. So can you kind of explain how he ends up in Alabama and how you found that out? That he was in Alabama, kind of stuff along that line.
What happened was that we've been looking for him, and we checked out a moccasin area, and the post office box was closed. And Barbara Dobbins, they were pretty tight, and they traveled together. And I'd heard about his stepdaughter was owed money from them, and she got pissed off. And my number had been floating around around Jamestown area, and she called me one day. And I met her at the pizza parlor, and she said, "Barbara just called me," and it was a Alabama, area code prefix, whatever. And so the next day, I think I talked to Rick and we planned it out. I called like I was from Alabama, and I met this. Barbara had fire red hair. Right, she's a big woman
that you could not mistake. You said, I remember you saying that her hair was, you couldn't miss it.
Oh no, you couldn't miss it. And so I called back that number, and it came back to Summerton Mobile Home Sales. And I talked like I just went in with my wife. We're gonna buy a mobile home, and they said, "Oh yeah, Barbara. Oh yeah, blah blah blah. And nice gal. She just started working for us and all that." So I knew we had her. So we took a red eye out the next day. Or actually that night, from Sac to Birmingham. And we set up across the street at an old gas station. And we looked across with some, glasses, and there was a red Toyota with California plates. And the California plates stick out pretty good in Alabama.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, right.
And the guy who owned I'll never forget, his name was Lavelle Roberts. He was proud. He after World War II, he bought this gas station. He said, "I raised my family on this place." It was really neat.
Right.
He even offered the militia, which in the bail bond business, you need the body, or you need evidence that you got this guy. The militia actually offered. They don't like white trash from California.
Right.
So
so they're more than
I cooled him down on that. And when Barbara left about 4:30 that afternoon, we just followed her down the highway. It led us into Warrior, Alabama. And as we're driving and following her, she stops at a house, which was the house. And Candler looks back because this guy's on the run for something.
Right.
And he looks back and he dives headfirst into the car, and we started pursuing him. I was a soccer mom fan, man. We're trying to navigate the roads, and we had to call it off. It was getting too dangerous, against the little car.
Right. Yeah, I remember reading that too, and I was just giggling because I'm thinking I'm picturing that you guys see him, and then he notices that you guys are there, and he dives in head first, and then it's
man, he spotted anything like those guys. They're always looking, and
for sure, right.
So we called the pursuit off and went back and made a call in a phone booth, and that's when we couldn't get the help and all that. And then we hit the house at midnight that night, and Barbara was in there, but he wasn't, and deputies showed up, and I put out wanted posters, like I said, and the FBI had already called me that day in the hotel room, telling me to quit handing out wanted posters. I'm like,
I find that so weird. I find that so weird, Steven. Like, you think that, I want to ask why, like, I know I kind of asked it already, but why were they upset with you putting these posters up? And I think I know the answer to it, and probably the people listening do. And how did the FBI even know what you were doing is what I want to know. Like, how were they watching you? What were they doing?
Oh, yeah. Well, because I briefed Tuolumne County detectives before I left. That they came over about 3:00 in the afternoon at my house in Murphy's. Right. And I briefed them and told them my game plan.
Right.
And it's the biggest case in California at the time. And so and I didn't think they were gonna they kept tabs on me. And that's when Agent Barnes called about 5:00 that afternoon before we hit the house at midnight on the 7th. And said, "Quit handing water posters." I said, "Why?" It goes, "Because it says wanted for questioning, and we don't want to question him." And I go, "Well, it didn't say by who. Maybe I want to talk to the guy. I got 23 grand or 25 grand on the line. I'm not paying that off. It's my deal."
Yep.
And so they knew we were back there, and it goes from quit handing out water posters to when we hit the house at midnight. And of course, he's not there. Barbara was drunk and stoned. She was all messed up. She
Right.
was a slob. And here's what happens. Like when we hit the house, she was on the phone with Candler. We didn't know this, but Candler was in Birmingham at a Days Inn. But like I said, if you remember the old caller IDs, that little box,
Yep.
and so we had her, and we kind of sat her down. I looked, and the last call was from that area, and it said Days Inn. So he had called himself when we hit the house. He called 911. And so the deputies were rolling from Jefferson County. About 8 of them showed up, lights and sirens, and they knew who we were. And
Right.
they went in and talked to her, and she's throwing stuff out the door. I mean, it was nuts. And I looked, and one of the deputies walking away, and he had our wanted poster in the back pocket. And he goes, your boy is number one wanted in the state right now. And I'm going, right on. So
Yeah.
I said,
Wow.
his name's Dave Gear, because it popped up on the caller ID.
So new
And I
name.
said,
New
he
name.
stays in Alabama and Birmingham. And they took off, code 3.
For
So me and
sure.
Rick just kind of followed him out of there. And we hit Days Inn. And it's funny because it's interesting because the phone lines were down and they couldn't track the calls from the rooms and such. But the guy said he headed west. And the guy, it was pretty cool. He says, my bet is he went to another Days Inn or something like that. And we got to Fultondale, Alabama. It was like Motel Row. Excuse me. And so I organized. It was Jefferson County and Walker County, and they met us there. And we set up a command post at the Days Inn, and cars are rolling in and stuff. We got the key, and we went up to the room, and I led the knock and kick, and he was gone. And we got the gal identifies this guy, right?
Right. Right.
So we kicked the door, and a bunch of us go in there. And it's cold 6-pack of Budweiser on the counter. And it's like 2 a.m, right?
So you
And
just missed him.
we missed him by minutes. Well, you know what? I mean, as a
Wow.
cop, these guys just pulled up in front. They didn't think it was that big a thing. Well, he DD'd out of there
For sure.
and went across into one of the swamps.
Yeah,
And
like you
we
think
knew that.
you think that they would be smart enough, like not to roll in, like with the whole lights going and make a big scene, because obviously this guy is an experienced criminal or thinks he is, and he's got eyes in the back of his head, basically, right? He's going to be
Oh,
looking
sure,
for,
yeah.
yeah, and I
Yeah, he
mean,
knows. But it was kind of it was a hard hit
crazy.
dragnet. You go in there with a bunch of cops and stuff. Where's he going to go? But he got out right away, and so we couldn't find him. And law enforcement had canvassed all the hotels. And my partner Rick, who was just the guy, he was a sergeant, Washoe County, just a really good cop. He goes, let's do it again. I'm going, Rick, they already hit it. He goes, no, let's do it again. So we get to like the last. It was Motel 6, and there was a black gal there, really really sweet. And I said, hey, blah, blah, check the registry for a guy named Dave Gear. She goes, oh yeah, he smelled like the swamps. He was wet. He came in, he was in the swamps.
Right.
And they had already ordered some of these, they call them the swamp rats, but just like on U.S. Marshals, they actually have guys that have these boats, and they get $100 a day, and they go out there and they search this, when you get a bad guy running around in the swamps.
Yep.
And we started into the swamps, and Rick and I kind of walked around a little bit, but there was no sign of him. So we hit the Motel 6, and she identifies the guy and gives us the room keys up on 101, which is up on the corner. Corner rooms are great because you kind of get surrounded. And we went up to that room, and we tried to go kind of touch the door. And I mean, he knew we were there. I mean, This is about 4 a.m. now. And we moved the command post over to Days Inn, because when I got the identification from the motel clerk, I called the command center command post at the Days Inn and said, he's over here. So they moved everything over there,
Right. Right.
and they started calling resources, and I mean everybody, and they put out roadblocks about 3 miles out. Normal man will walk about 4 miles an hour.
Okay.
So, and this guy was in good shape. Candler was in good shape, excellent shape. And so we pushed the roadblock out, and we had Alabama highway patrol, everything, and went to the room, and the key didn't fit, so I had to send Rick down to get another key, and it took a while, and he knew we were out there, and I'm at the door, and now I got a couple of guys behind me, cops,
Right.
to go ahead and fill in, to go in there. And I can remember this thing. You hear the gravel up there crunching, And the guy's getting out, and you hear shotguns being racked, and AR-15s and everything. And I'm hoping I don't get shot at the door. And all of a sudden, Candler came out like a wildcat, came right for my gun, and the fight was on. And I'm trying to hold him off by his neck and reach my 9mm out here. And as soon as within about a minute, I mean, these guys are big back there, and they jumped in there and they just pounded him, and then we got him. And so that's what happened there. But from there, we knew we got this guy, and there was a lieutenant there. I think it was a captain too. It was like, what do you want to do? Like, well, we'll take, you guys are busy. We took him to the hospital because I cut his eye open when I slammed him. I was fighting for my life.
I don't blame you.
And
I don't blame you.
So in the waiting room, I went to get snacks and stuff and some Cokes. It was like 5 a.m. And Candler literally confessed to my partner, Rick, that he felt bad for those girls that were murdered in California, Yosemite. And Rick said, man, this is our guy, man. He literally confessed. Even Barbara, when we hit the house, she mentioned that she thought we were the FBI when we showed up there. So, it's right on. It's painting, the writing's on the wall,
Wow. Yeah. And so I'm just, and what was your partner thinking that when he's confessing to all of this and he's saying that he feels bad and stuff like that when you have him at the hospital? Like, what do you think when that's going on? I don't even, I'd be like, what is going on here? Like,
oh, he's like a kid at Christmas, man. I was walking back. It's almost like he was jumping up and down.
That's crazy.
He pulled me aside and he goes, he just literally confessed to this thing. And that was part of the thing later on, is when the FBI talked to me, and they were kind of down some things. I wasn't out to give the FBI a black eye. I got friends in the FBI.
Right.
I even did some stuff. We're all on the same team. But they didn't want a black eye as some rogue bounty hunter, ex-cop maniac out there catches their guy. But the motivation is money. It's like, whether it's the government or not. I got 25 grand on the line.
Right.
I'm not letting this guy get away. That's a lot of money. You got to pay these bonds in 6 months if they skip. And that's not going to happen. I don't, wife and child. I'm not losing my house because you want me to be, PC with whatever you guys want.
Right.
So that's kind of the attitude. And it kind of stuck like that for 2 years until later on they got a hold of me when the case was going. I didn't hear from the FBI from the day in 1999 I sent the 18-page report to the task force.
Right.
And they don't even contact me, but they interviewed 1,000 witnesses, but I never get a phone call. So I have to go to Carrington's attorney, and Carrington tells me this, and I met with the Carrington, as a matter of fact. I get their blessing to do this case. And then it's almost 2 years later when Stainer's going to court, Superior Court, that they now, because they're calling other witnesses, they now decide to give me a call and ask me what I have. And I get it. And I cooperated.
Right.
I had to write some stuff when one of the suspects was going to take the fifth. And Nick Rossi had now had the case. They shipped James Maddox out, the head of the FBI in Sacramento, because they screwed it up. Even, like I said, Senator Grassley out of Iowa said it's the worst bungle since Ruby Ridge and Waco, was the Yosemite case. So, they screwed up. I just happened to do my job. But Nick Rossi, great guy. He's a counsel for Senate Judiciary now. And I spoke with him a couple of years ago, matter of fact, the Harvard guy. But he's a good guy.
Right.
He believed in what I was doing.
For sure. And why?
Yeah.
I find that really weird that for all of that time after that, the FBI didn't reach out to talk to you. Like, to me, I'm just I'm thinking from my experience, and that I would think that they would want to talk to you because you're the one chasing these guys all over Alabama, and you're definitely a part of this. Why would the FBI not talk to you? I'm just curious. To me, it's weird. It just everything about this case gets weird. But why wouldn't they want to talk to you? I don't like.
It just, you know what? Because, I would have played their narrative. Because of egos, what have you. It's, the Bureau's not all like that. But like I said, a rogue bounty hunter, ex-cop goes out and chases some guy and catches him. And this is a guy they should have captured.
That's true. Okay, that's true. Okay.
Yeah, it's I get it.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. When you look at it that way, you're right. Okay. So yeah, but I still think they should have talked to you and stuff, and I would think, but hey, I'm
going to take a break.
Yes, I'm going to take a break too. So I actually got a break.
Let's take a break.
Yeah, I got a break.
See you back in 3.
Yeah, I guess give it 5 minutes. I got a break screen and I can put up with some music. You're not going to hear me.
Yeah, throw some up there, man. Throw
up
Neil Young. Neil Young needs the
Neil Young and Joe Rogan need some love. But yeah.
Oh, I like them both though.
All right, I'll see you in 5 minutes. Yep.
All right.
Perfect. righty, we're back. I do see you, Steven. That was so cool. I actually had a Be Right Back break, sign up, and everything.
Yeah, cool.
Perfect. Yeah, I figured that because my interviews tend to go a little long, so I thought I'm going to start doing like a break after the first hour and 20 minutes or so. Let people get up and stretch, go to the bathroom.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's nice.
Yep. So I'm glad that I got the. That was the first time I tried out my Be Right Back scene. So, uh,
Cool.
if your guys are watching this, definitely you don't got to sit through the whole 5 minutes there. You can fast forward it, but I figured it'd be a great thing to have for my guest and myself to get up and stretch. So definitely very cool. I got to try that out. You're the first time getting to try that out, Steven. You're a part of that, so that's pretty cool. All right, so I'm just looking through my notes, making sure that we covered everything, and I just got it's going perfect. We're actually following right along here. So, all righty. Now, so we before we took our break, we were kind of talking about Candler and the other people involved in this case and you were already saying that you definitely think that these guys were protected, right? Or at least he was.
Yeah, no, I think many of them were protected. What's interesting is, we have June 7th, 1999. We nail Candler in Alabama. June 8th, they find Dr. Wong's body in Bear Valley. June 9th, Tuolumne County District Attorney Nina Dean comes out in the paper and says, we have 8 possible suspects in custody on this case. 8.
Wow.
And she wasn't far off.
8
fast
suspects.
forward, yeah, fast forward 90 days later, she retires. So the narrative was, they threw mud at the wall, and nine guys stuck. What's interesting, they named Billy Joe Strange, Mick Larwick, Eugene Dykes, this guy Michael Etley, Daryl Stevens, but they don't name Candler. He's the only person they didn't name in that. Yeah, and that's what kind of gave us another clue.
Yeah, for sure. That's not even naming him. Like you got 8, throw up 8 names, but don't put his. That is.
Oh yeah, exactly. And when we arrested Candler on June 7th, it was national news. Even my grandmother in West Virginia called my mom about 11 o'clock at night in San Francisco. And it says, Stephen, was that, because they showed the news, they showed the house in Warrior, Alabama, we hit and all that, or whatever. But the FBI went out and arrested 2 more guys right after we got Candler in Alabama.
Wow. Well, I mean, what else are you supposed to believe, right? Definitely protection going on here, which we're going to kind of talk about why we think all of this. I mean, it kind of all, like, that's what I'm trying to explain to everybody listening. You have to read the book because it all does come together at the end. Like it's kind of like a weird little journey you got to take. A lot of different things that are happening. So that's why on the third read, Stephen, I keep telling you that. Like I'm reading it again, and I really truly am, because you kind of pick up on more stuff as you read it a couple times, and it's just something I think you have to, because there's a lot going on in this case, and I mean, kind of we have only got halfway through the case in a way, which is. Like that case, I mean, like with these characters and stuff like that, which is crazy. Now, so we got these guys arrested. Everything. Now, how much time do these guys end up getting? Tell me that they're doing life in prison. What's going on? Like, what's the status, and how much time did they get when this is all said and done?
Well, the first thing the FBI did with the local law enforcement was they in El Portal or Yosemite area, Mariposa, they did a probation parole sweep. Anybody that matched the MO, sexual predator, deviant, drugs, rape, whatever, they went and cleaned. They cleaned house, and so they bring all these guys in, and they name them in Ledger Dispatch in Tuolumne County, June 9th, 1999. And so, when they do these parole sweeps and such, they found drugs, everything. So guys went away. Almost everybody went to custody and incarcerated somewhere, county jail, what have you. But the 2 main guys that even after Candler was arrested, I still stayed with the case, and I was looking at Michael Mick Larwick, and his half brother Eugene Dykes. And what's interesting is that right before June, the police had tried to stop Eugene Dykes, and he ended up get in a pursuit, commandeered a house, and took a family hostage in Modesto.
Okay.
12-hour standoff. They had to smoke him out.
Wow.
2 days later, his half brother Mick Larwick, who really is he's a badass parole. I mean, the cops are scared of this guy. He gets pulled over by Officer Steve Silva. Steve Silva is a motorcycle officer in Modesto, great guy. Larwick jumps out with a rifle and starts shooting at the officer. And Steve Silva returns fire. There's over 30 rounds exchanged. Steve Silva gets shot twice in the stomach.
Oh my God.
Now he lived. And the stop was for expired registration. And then Larwick runs into a house and he holds a family hostage for 22 hours.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And so we got two of the guiltiest guys in the world.
For sure.
Larwick doesn't talk, but Eugene Dykes gets hauled in. They question him about the murders. And he literally confesses. He's telling them things that they knew and things, this and that. And then he recants his interview. What's interesting, and we can read through this all we want, is that law enforcement did not record or videotape the interview.
Okay, that's not normal.
No, it's not.
That's not normal. Like, okay,
it's totally out of bounds. Yeah. So we thought that was interesting too.
Oh, that's beyond interesting. Like, geez, like, you got to be getting frustrated when you hear this stuff, right? Like, I'm getting frustrated. I'm not even like I wasn't even part of the case. And I'm frustrated because it's like, there's people being protected. Now videos aren't being taken and nothing's being, like, they record everything, especially when they got somebody like that in there. They're going to record it. And they're going to make sure.
Oh, yeah, just like like Nancy Lawson, my main informant in the case. I mean, she was raped by Dykes when she was 17. So that even my informants, people that I spoke to, because between Candler and Stainer being arrested, I still continued with the case, and she'd hook me up with the underground, the drug underground in Modesto.
Right,
I would go down from Murphy's, and she would call up and say, I got this guy and this guy, and I would go into their homes. I'd have my .40 caliber behind my back. And, they're all doing drugs. I would bring some joints. I didn't do anything else. And I'd try, because I don't want to be known as a cop. And I'd go by myself. I didn't bring my partner, but I had to sit down and work with these guys.
For sure. A couple joints kind of smooth things over. If you have a couple joints, it's all good.
And I had a beard and I had long hair, and they say, you're a cop. No, I'm not. And I'd light a joint up and, that kind of stuff. But I laid it out to them. You guys have mothers and sisters. If this happened, you'd want me to be the guy that goes after these guys. And so I started getting the underground on my side. Well, the FBI and law enforcement didn't like that, and I started getting notes, handwritten notes telling me Julie was held for 30 days and gang raped and drugged. I mean, I'm getting all sorts of stuff that the FBI didn't have. Wow. Because they trusted me. And people want to talk. And, excuse me.
No problem.
So I befriended these people, they got families and such. And so a couple of them went my way, and I would get calls, and that's what led to that ditch and everything else later on in the book where he found the car parts.
Yeah, we definitely that's where I was heading next, Steven, because that is a crazy part of the book too. And this is a part, I guess, gotta get comfortable. All right, there we go. Sorry, guys. I'm a little stiff here, so alrighty. So, let's talk about this ditch, because this was a part of the book that I found, and it was like, wow, like, just when I thought I couldn't be shocked, I'm shocked again. Kind of explain to people about this ditch and how you end up going to this ditch and what you find and all that kind of good stuff, because that is a story in itself. It really is.
Well, I was living in San Diego. It was 2002, so it's about almost 2 years after the case. I'd come down here and I was working PI work and such, and Nancy Lawson, my main person, I mean, it's kind of like, be a conspiracy person calling you about this and that, but she was in with these guys. Beautiful. Right, yeah. She was a Coors Light model. I mean, beautiful woman. A little bit of a drinking problem, but she wasn't a doper,
Exactly.
And she bugged the hell out of me. So one day I just decided, okay, I'll drive north from San Diego up to Modesto, get a hotel room, meet with her, and start telling me about this guy. And she introduced me to him. She said that the night before, he took her out to a ditch out in Salida, and Salida is right next to Modesto. And this guy was kind of caretaking an almond ranch. And that the story goes is that he was over at a house, a guy named Ricardo, and that's when this guy first saw Stainer. Only time. But when he walked up back then, he saw a couple gals in a red Pontiac, kind of like looking out the window like they needed help. But these guys are all high on meth and stuff.
Right.
He goes in there, and Devin, he would do favors for dope, meth. So they were tearing apart this a Jeep Wagoneer, like in 1979. And if you remember those guys do, they had the shag carpet, orange. It was kind of, we were around those cars in the 70s.
Right.
And that they tore the car totally apart. And he was to take the car parts and to go ditch them at this ranch. And that's what he did. So for a bag of dope, he took all the car parts, ditched them. And so this is a couple years later, he takes Nancy out to the ditch, and she was a sharp gal, and she says, "Boy, this sure looks like it." So I go to meet with the guy, but he ended up violating a probation, and it was in Stanislaus County Jail. So I arranged for his bond through ward bail bonds. I signed for him because he wasn't going to go anywhere, and I bought him breakfast at Denny's over on McHenry, and said, "Man, talk to me," and he did, and he told me everything.
Wow.
So I went up to the ditch with him. And I almost had a heart attack. A chill still running up my spine as I walked in the ditch, and there's car parts exactly from a 79 Wagoneer. I mean, everything he said.
Right.
I said, holy shit. So I got a hold of the Carringtons up in Eureka, and they flew down to the Son Carrington Foundation in Modesto. And Aaron Gallagher, who was the Stanislaus District Attorney Investigator, the investigator on this case. And so we met for about an hour and a half, and we all caravanned out to the ditch. Excuse me. And we put Devin in the ditch, and he's pulling up tires and all this stuff. And the ditch is probably, I don't know, 100 by 50 feet, not real big.
Right.
And he's pulling up stuff that I'd seen. And he got Mr. and Mrs. Carrington there, Kim Peterson, the director of the Son Carrington Foundation, Aaron Gallagher, DA investigator, myself. And I decided to go in there and help move stuff around. And I remember pulling up this piece of plywood, and there's a Valentine's bag underneath it.
Okay, wow.
And they were taking on Valentine's weekend. And the Carringtons started crying. And it was also, which I have in the book, is there was like women's clothes in there.
Right, yes.
But Carol had her own place, and parents don't know. Carol was 42 when this happened. You don't know exactly what she wears or owns or whatever. But it was women's clothing. And I pulled this Valentine's bag up, and I'm like this. Oh my God. I mean, if Karen says knew, they started crying. It was terrible. And I gave it to Aaron Gallagher, and he goes, basically we talked for a minute. And within 10 minutes, he called the forensics team into the ditch. And we'd already left, but they went through the ditch and everything. The bag was checked out. There's no fingerprints or DNA in this thing because it's been 2 years. It's been in the weather and elements.
And that was one of the first thing I asked you. I remember even when we were talking on the phone, I'm like, please tell me that there was prints on this bag or you found prints on anything. And you were like, no, the weather got a hold of it for so long.
Yeah.
That there was nothing. But I got chills reading that in the book. I really did.
It was tough.
Yeah, and I can't even imagine you were there. I can't imagine. I got chills reading it. So
you know what? That's what totally solidified it for me. Right. We got him. We know. And
because he kind of Devin kind of broke this case wide open, right? Like he did. Like just
sure,
it's a big deal. Like this is a big deal to me. Like this is the evidence. I mean, so he definitely broke this case for sure.
Oh, he did. I remember I met with his mom and his sister, and he were living in a motel room in the Modesto. And I went there and sat down with them and spoke to him. And his mom was they're just down and out, and good people overall. And he felt bad, but he definitely, I remember telling him, what was Carrie Stainer like? Carrie just stood in the corner of this garage and didn't say a word. These guys controlled everything, but that's what broke it open. And what it's interesting too is that Aaron Gallagher knew that Larwick and Dykes were involved. I mean, totally involved.
Right.
But he said, Steve, he goes, I still have Candler's file on my desk. He goes, I know this guy's involved. He knew he was involved. And then fast forward, Candler goes away for 18 years for raping a girl from age 7 to 12. So, he did 18 years in the Tehachapi down by Mojave State Prison after that. Yeah, for a whole separate thing. But what's interesting too, which kind of scared me because I went back to Calaveras to live there for a short time, is that he was paroled in Wilseyville in Calaveras County. He's on Megan's list. You can look him up, you know. But the guy's a real tool.
Yeah, like yeah, like it's just crazy. That's all I ever think of when when I read the book and that. I'm like, this is crazy. And that really bothered me that they couldn't get more like prints or anything off of the stuff in the ditch. I mean, like I really Jesus, I wish they would have. But I mean, like at least you said, that solidified it for you, right? Like I mean, there it is. I mean, and he brought you right there, so and knew all about it. So I mean, that what more can you say about it, right?
Yeah, I mean that pretty much, whether it gets solved or Carrie confesses to who was involved. For me myself, that's closure.
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah, I agree. And I do you think that this is part of a like I always this is one thing I always wanted to ask you and I kind of always forget. Do you think like we got a few different characters that we're talking about right now, but do you think that this is part of a way bigger ring? Like something that's going on? What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. Because 4 years before the Yosemite case, I was doing a bounty for Dennis Wyckoff, a former friend of mine in a bail agency in Tuolumne County. He got arrested for kidnapping. And there were two brothers. They looked the same. He grabbed the wrong guy, and they indicted him to 6 months in county jail. So I had to take over his bail bond business for all the bail jumpers, which is, somebody has to come in and clean the liability because the surety companies will end up being out a lot of money.
Right.
He probably had about 150,000 skips. I chased this guy Cliff Watkins and chased him around, and then the cops are protecting him and calling the house, and it's in the book. And he ends up getting arrested in Shasta County, and I was working with state parole who had a tail on him, and I get a call about two days before Christmas. Say he's in Tuolumne County. I went up there, and Cliff Watkins tells me that the night I was at his house, he was behind the door with a 40 caliber ready to blow me away, and told me that every time I came to town, a Mariposa County Sheriff's Department would call him and warn him that I was in town to get him. And he even told us where the cops were hiding the drugs. And one of them was old Joaquin Murrieta a cave on Lake McClure. And that leads into Deputy Ron Van Meter being murdered in 1980. And then they find his body in 1989 wrapped in fishnets and fire extinguishers.
Yeah, but
and that was just before 1980 when Van Meter went to Sacramento to Attorney General's office to report drug activity within the Sheriff's Department. And Lucky Jordan had gone to Monterey County and to an FBI office. He got witness protection. But when Ron Van Meter went up to the Attorney General's office called Mariposa County, and Paul Page was the sheriff. They call him Boss Hogg. And you can see the video from 2020. It's on YouTube.
I'm gonna put a link to that because that.
Yeah, you gotta put a link to that because
that interview is crazy. Like that.
You know what? Orb Hatton's in there, and how they infiltrated when the new sheriff came in. The threats and everything is that that Cliff Watkins ends up dying 3 months after interviewing him from hot shot. He was a meth addict, but he wasn't a heroin guy, and he ends up dead. He told us everything because he had nothing to lose.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And that I remember, like that was the thing is you were the one that told me to watch the YouTube video on Mariposa. You're like, you got to check this out. So I look into that and I was like, oh my God, like this is crazy. Like it's just crazy. That's all I can keep saying. But I was like, I when I watched that, I was like, and so you stumbled into that, and like, what is going on? Like, there's I don't even know where to start with Mariposa. Like it's definitely what's going on there. It's a drug ring, murder for hire. Like what the police are involved. Where do you want to go with this? Like I want to let you kind of lead the way because there is so much to do with this, and I wanted you to get, I wanted you to tell your story of it, and that because I know that there was a point that you were telling me that you were fearing for your life, and you had to kind of hide out in the woods for a month and stuff like that. Like there was a lot of stuff going on here, so you definitely stumbled into something in this whole Mariposa thing, and I was just like, just when I thought the Yosemite murders were crazy enough, then you hit me with this one, and I was like, oh my God, like it's all, and it all kind of joins together. Like that's what I was trying to tell people is that the murders and the Mariposa, it's all kind of together.
It goes, it goes back to when in 1995, 96, when I was chasing Cliff Watkins for Wyckoff, and and the sheriffs were calling him and such, and he ends up dead, and I know all this stuff. And it wasn't until 2017 when I did my first podcast with Ed Opperman about the book. I mean, I wrote the book in 2012.
Right.
And the second podcast, I was running boats up in San Francisco on yachts, and I just, I knew things were going on, and you can tell when somebody's on your boat and stuff. And I just had a bad feeling. I checked out up into the mountains for about 2 weeks. Basically, no, I'm not kidding you, with my computer and my knife, and hid out. It sounds crazy, but that it still leads. And I was right. And this is going 20 years ago, but 2 years ago, with the Jerry Cox case and receivership, and took his ranch in Mariposa.
Yep. That
National Coalition for Men. I posted on Facebook, basically, if I disappear, I'm a happy guy. I didn't kill myself,
Right.
And now National Coalition for Men picked up on my story on Facebook, and I posted it. Fast forward about a year later, after Jerry Cox's property stolen. First, he's accused by a totally vindictive rape, and never happened, and all that. He was on Dr. Phil, 3 months ago?
You're right.
That the day before they were going to get it was a hearing to go ahead and see was going to be a federal lawsuit. His attorney, who's the attorney for National Coalition for Men, he's murdered, shot in his home in Crestview, above LA County. His roommate answers the door, and he asks for him. The guy's in a UPS uniform, and he shoots him in the head and kills him. And then 5 days later, Judge Salas in New Jersey just got the case for the Deutsche Bank stuff with Epstein.
Okay.
They go in and they shoot and kill her kid and shoot her husband. Okay. And of course, the shooter ends up, who was an attorney, they said he was pissed off at Mark or whatever bullshit. He ends up committing suicide. Okay. So we have Mariposa, then we have a New Jersey judge who just got the biggest financial case related to Epstein.
Yep.
They go in and run in and kill her kid. That was a signal saying, hey, don't take this case. And she didn't take it.
Yeah, I don't.
Mariposa has been dirty forever, and it goes back to the Contras, Inslaw, Gary Webb. And he shot himself twice in the head. They said, suicide.
That's becoming common now, Stephen. You kill yourself with 2 bullets to the head somehow.
Yeah, that's pretty tough. Yeah.
and
so
I don't understand. I don't understand, Stephen, how people don't see this. I really don't. Like I don't know if they just don't choose to look at it, or they're blind to it, or I don't know what's going on. But I've had people they'll say, "Oh no, it was suicide." I'm like, "Nah, he shot himself twice. It doesn't work that way." And how many of these supposed suicides have to go on, and strange deaths and that, before people start to wake up that there's some shady elements to the government and the police force and stuff like that? It's crazy. Like, I don't.
Yeah, they don't think the government kills people.
I know. I've had people say that to me. I told you that when we were talking on the phone a couple days ago. I had actually somebody arguing with me that the government would never do that to anyone, any civilian. They're like, they would never just go and kill somebody or take them out like you see in the movies. And I'm like, oh boy, I don't know, man. Read a history book. I don't know.
Yeah, you hide that from the history, and it's the left's propaganda and their narratives. It's like Philip Marshall.
Another case, exactly. Right.
Killed his 2 kids, and Philip Marshall's close to home because my daughter went to school with his kids, and everybody up there said, "Oh, he's a murderer" and all that. But people don't, unless they look into it. He just wrote the book, The Big Bamboozle.
Yep. False
Flag. He's coming out. He wrote Lakefront Airport about the Clintons and everything, and Mina and Lakefront and all the drugs of the Contras.
Yep.
The Inslaw thing was a computer program that the Canadian government wanted and everything. And it was to track Department of Justice cases and everything else. And the Hamiltons owned it, and they wouldn't sell out. And Hillary Clinton was with Rose's Law Group before she married Bill, and during the time that it goes all the way to that. And Gary Webb, of course, broke the Iran-Contra thing. And Mariposa, because back when the cocaine was going, you got Miami and you got this, but the flights were going to the Mina and then Lakefront Airport. But on the West Coast, Mariposa, the small airport, which is run by the county, is that Orb Hatton and those guys had done, shadow surveillance on the airport, and sheriff's deputies' cars would come in and unload packages at night in Mariposa.
Right.
And then from there, the cocaine and such would be distributed up to San Francisco and LA. And it goes to Johnny Depp in the movie Blow and things like that. But, it's like I said, every major country or state has a huge illegal drug trade.
Oh, for sure.
And that's
Right.
that's
Yeah.
what's going on. So you got power brokers involved. You got there's a lot of money in the drug industry, and it goes all the way to the top.
Yeah, and that's true, and I totally agree with what you've said of several times already. Is that every successful country that has they have an underground drug ring like that, they just
Oh yeah.
do, and history will
Mm.
say that. That's not you just blowing smoke up people's ass or just making an assumption that it's fact.
No, it is. I mean, it's
And that's the thing with Mariposa. When I started looking into that, I was like, wow, like, so what did you like? What do you think that? I'm trying to word it right here. So with Mariposa, was it like? Do you think that was like a drug hub, like where they were bringing it in and the police were involved? Do you think like the whole force was involved, or just certain people? Because you did bring up that deputy or that officer, they did find supposedly drowned. Until they brought his body out and there was a fire extinguisher wrapped around him, and I asked you like there must have been holy hell to pay when they found his body, and you said no, they swept it under the rug basically, and it wasn't.
they
Really,
did because
it's
yeah, I
crazy.
mean
That's crazy.
because yeah, Deputy Beavers and these guys. I mean, this is one of their comrades. He's drowned, and
Right.
and Van Meter was like they say he was a hell of a swimmer. I mean, and he'd been on lake patrol and at Lake McClure stuff. And when he disappeared, they called for a mini sub out of Merced, out of a dive shop.
Yep.
And Paul Page said, "No, we don't need the outside help. You got mini sub can do a lot in a lake like that.
Right. Yep.
So when you watch the 2020 video with Tom Gerald interviews Paul Page, and and it's interesting how Rod St. Clair is coming down off the mountain, and the Queen of England's visiting, and he gets a head-on crash, and he kills 3 Secret Service agents.
Yep.
And in the
Crazy.
trunk of his car were explosives and automatic weapons. Like I told you earlier, this is my take on it. I may be stretching it.
Yep.
I think that they were trying to take out the Queen of England.
Wow. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and I mean, why else? That's what I thought of too when we were talking about it. Is why else would he have all of that in the car, right? I mean,
Right.
I mean, it doesn't make sense. And then I kind of thought, like, if that would have happened where they did take out the Queen, I don't understand what they were hoping to accomplish. And we kind of talked about that off air. I was kind of like, what would be the point
Yeah.
of? And I mean,
I don't know the motive on that at all. I mean, that's what happened.
yeah, right.
But he was on when they Rod St. Clair with the hospital, they found like 20 prescription drugs in the system.
Wow.
You can see the medical report online of all the drugs he took.
Yeah, and and that's what I mean. Like when you told me that too, when you were talking about what was found in the car and everything, I was like, oh my god, like it's definitely
Yeah.
something going on there. So, and we were also talking. So, do you think that like so there's definitely a drug ring going on, obviously. And I mean like that, I think is pretty much a given. And we talked about that, and so what is this? Is it what's going on in Mariposa now? In your opinion, I assume it's cleaned up. What's like? Has this been looked into or no? No, don't.
No, it's not cleaned up.
Wow,
I got a call from an informant
incredible.
who works for the county government up there. That's all I'm going to say. About 5-6 months ago, and he's way up there, and he confided with me on some stuff. And they it's I don't know why the inspector general's office hasn't gotten involved. I mean, maybe some of this here will drive some of that toward them.
Right.
I'm not ready to get back on a horse and ride this arena again.
Yeah,
But
I blame
if
you,
somebody
yeah.
comes to me with the right people or whatever, I got some contacts, congressmen and stuff I could reach out to that I my family knows personally. I just haven't called those markers in unless they come on my desk.
Oh, for sure. Right. Yeah.
It's not. I'm not scared of being hit anymore. And when you face these guys off and you put stuff on Facebook, like Orb Hatton told me when I first met Orb Hatton, he read about the case and I had been in the newspaper and I was the guy, and we met and he told me the first thing back in '99 is get a newspaper guy behind you. It's the only way you're going to live through this, and I did, and I have. And the guy's name's Mike Mooney. He's up in Idaho somewhere. And I
Great
still
advice.
get information coming in. I just got information from Chicago from Rhonda Dunn today. which you got to definitely interview her. She's a good interviewer.
Yes, we were speaking about that, and I definitely would love for you to set
Yeah.
that up. I would love to do that. We could even do it with both of you on the interview at the same time. I've never done an interview with two people at the same time, so that'd be another first. And I'm willing, yeah, definitely. I would love for you to set that up, Steven. That would be an amazing interview. And yeah, I'm just checking my bullet points here because I just want because we were talked about a lot when we were on the phone actually, and kind of doing. And I said, well, I'm going to jot down some points here, then stuff like that. Now we talked about how you were fearing for your life and that you kind of went on the lam there for a couple weeks and that. And so we touched on that. Now you were talking. I was surprised that you were arrested at one point. Can you kind of explain to people what that's all about? Because that is one of the bullet points I have here. And when you told me about it, I was kind of like, what? Like, so I want you to.
Oh, I,
explain
I
that.
I was saying the same thing. Is
Right.
when Dennis Wyckoff went to jail, he got out on bond, and he still had some skips, and he wanted to go chase Cliff Watkins down.
Right.
And I think it was a $50,000 bond or something. It was, you always go from the highest amount of money because I was kind of like I said, Amwest was a surety company, and I was a guy to clean up agencies if somebody got in trouble to clean up liability on bail jumpers. So I kind of against my better judgment, I took him to Mariposa, and we found where Cliff Watkins was and this and that, and uh, at gunpoint, I called him out of the house, and what happened was we had driven by, and I recognized Cliff Watkins. I mean, I've been chasing this guy. I got his picture. I know what this guy looks like.
Right.
But another guy came out with his jacket on and stuff, and so I pulled him out with a gunpoint. I did a cursory search, and nothing happened. And I remember there's a bunch of cranksters, and there was like trailer parks at Mount Bullion by Mariposa. And it was all of a sudden the crowd. There's a crowd, they're against us. So let's get the fuck out of here. So he said, let's go get a pizza in town. As we're driving through town, I remember seeing an orange Camaro. I swear to God, at the gas station up on the corner of Mariposa. And I go, watch this guy. They followed us down. They cut us off at the pizza parlor. These two guys jump out, right? I'm like, okay, you guys want to go?
Yep.
So I kind of reached in for my little 380. They backed off. So we just said, yeah, let's leave town. And about halfway out of town, we get pulled over by this deputy Locke. He's a pogue. Checks our gun permits, all good and stuff. And that night he calls me and tells me he's going to file felony assault on me and some other things. And 2 days later, I get a warrant in the mail for $25,000 felony bench warrant for trespassing, assault with a deadly weapon, battery on a guy. And I'm like, you gotta be kidding, touch this guy,
Right.
So they indict me. I get an attorney named Larry Murray, great guy to San Francisco, and he tells me, you got to get a local attorney, man. This is a good old boy up there. And I get this guy named Kenneth Ballard, who was a circuit judge, great guy. We go to court, and it goes over to the preliminary trial. And we tried for a change of venue, no way. But what's interesting is that all this happened, I was never called in to be booked. Never made the local paper. If a kid breaks a window at an ice cream shop, it's the front page in that town.
Front page, yeah.
There's a bounty guy goes in there and does all this shit, and I never booked, never hits the paper. And we're just ready to go. I'm thinking, Larry said, be prepared. You're probably gonna lose. I mean, I was ready to split. I was going to New York.
Right.
I had all planned. I had 10 grand saved cash. I told my partner Rick, we arranged how to get money. If you're not gonna have a car in New York, I mean, I'll run on this warrant. I'll leave my family. I'm not going to prison.
Right.
So the judge at the hearing, judge calls in the attorney and the DA and the chambers, comes out, and he says, the guy name was, it was a hanging judge up there in Mariposa. It's one of the oldest courthouses. He used to have gallows in front, right? And we did get a substitution on the judge. And in the court, he announces, this is the biggest vindictive, malicious prosecution I've ever seen. I gave your attorney my home phone number. If you have any problems with your bail bond license, you call me at home. And so I had to take a 415 disturbing the peace beef. And that's what happened.
Wow. And you think that
Yeah.
they were doing this because of what you were kind of like, you kind of
Yeah.
found out about Mariposa?
They want to get me out of the way. And they knew I
Right.
talked to Cliff. They knew I interviewed Cliff Watkins, Shasta County. What did Cliff tell me? He told me everything.
Right.
He told me where they're hiding the drugs. He was like Van Meter, but he was their main drug mule. He was hiding all the dope. And he
Wow.
said, my life's not worth shit, so I'm gonna tell you everything. And it was interesting. He was a bad dude, good looking guy too. He didn't look like a druggie or anything, but he was the main drug mule for Mariposa County, and he had nothing to lose, and so he told me everything. And then my PI took up. There's Ron Adams, the former Angels Camp police chief and PI. Excuse me, umpire. When I coached baseball, he's an umpire. So I took him up there with me. So that's what happened.
Yeah, like that. So they were definitely. This is a message, right? Like this is like.
Oh, it was a message, huge message.
Yeah, a huge message. Like back off. You're looking, and that's the crazy thing about this is that you kind of stumbled into this Mariposa thing, right? With the whole drug ring and stuff like that, which is what is a fascinating turn for the story. Like, and I was just like, wow, like I could feel for you because it's definitely. I don't know. I'd be scared. Like, I mean, I really would be because I'm just like, wow, like this is serious stuff when you start getting into this type of thing, right? Like and the people that are involved and all of that crazy stuff. So it was, like, is there any parts of this that we missed? Like, I'm kind of looking at notes still, and I think I got most of the great points in that I wanted to hit because, I don't want to totally ruin it for everybody. I want them to read the book too, right? Like, I mean, that's where you're going to get all of it and really great stuff. But
no, I think you touched on pretty much everything. It's just the people got to realize is that whistleblowers or not, everybody wants to stand up and do all this. You got to be careful. You might pay the price. I've been lucky, like I said, until I did these podcasts with Opperman a few years back. There was no pressure. There was nothing going on. But you know what? They're watching you, and
right.
Even in on my Facebook thing, I let it all out there. Even my ex-wife didn't know it, but I was opened up by the FBI out of San Antonio, Texas, as a operative, and also with DOJ, B&E, Bureau of Narcotics Enforcement, because one of my old bosses ran the meth task force out of San Jose. Because being a bail bondsman, you're in the pit with these guys. You bail these guys. They talk to you. You know what I mean?
Yep.
You're not a cop anymore, and you're a good guy, and and they kind of like you. You pull them out of jail, so you get a lot of information. But there's one thing I never burned a snitch, and that's why they would talk to me all these years. I didn't. You know what? I mean, I had the FBI asking me who would you talk, and I wouldn't tell them. Right. Screw you. You know what? This is my gig. Yep. Because it's street credit, right? You don't have street credit. In this business here, you're dead.
Exactly. Yes, and that makes total sense. Makes total sense because I think that's such good. Like that's so true because if you're going around burning all of the people that are giving you information, it's going to get around quick, right? And then nobody's going to talk to you. Like a wildfire. So I mean and that's kind of I think why you had so much success and people talk to you, right? Because they knew that you weren't just going to go and run and tell everybody kind of thing, right? Like, and that's really important. And especially in your line of work at the time, that's your bread and butter. I mean, you have the credibility is everything.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Wow. Like, wow. I'm just crazy stuff, Steven. I'm just like, wow. I'm so happy that you took the time to come and talk to us about this book. And I do, as I keep saying, I recommend everybody pick it up. The link will be at the bottom in the description because I definitely want people to read it here. And then you can check out this video and it's right there. I got mine too. I'm going to hold mine up too. We're going to double whammy them, Steve.
There you go. Ultimate Prey.
Yeah, there you go. And I got mine up on my screen too. Ultimate Prey right there. And I said, I'm on my third read because, it's just a lot. Like my book's getting worn out because I got notes written in it and sticky notes in there and everything. And what I really like about your book, Steven, which to be honest is at the back of the book, you've got a great timeline that you put in there. With little it just kind of breaks down each event and by the date and what was, and it goes along with the story. That's really cool at the back of the book and a huge help. I really thought that was a great feature that you put in here.
Yeah, no, maps are pretty good. I did the maps and started plotting all the deaths and everything and locations, proximity of the deaths, and that kind of helps out a little bit too.
Oh, well, yeah, that's a great part of the book too, was the maps and stuff like that. And I'm going to try to show one of the little maps here in the book. I'm going to show it to my camera. Sorry guys, I have a dark podcast room because I'm not usually showing stuff on camera here, but you can see right here the best I can. There you go. You got some maps here that Steven's got in the books here that you can look at. It kind of breaks down where everything was found. as I said, it's got great uh, point by point. Yep, there you go. Perfect. Yeah, so you're a lot brighter than I am. Like I'm a little
Yeah,
dark.
no,
I'm a little dark in this room, so. But yeah, and it's got, like I said, all at the back. It's got point by point where it breaks down the story and everything, and great stuff. A great read, and one that
thank you.
I'm definitely gonna keep in touch with you too, because who knows what they're gonna find out. And I was really shocked when you told me that, Stephen, that in Mariposa nothing's been really done or looked into. I was kind of hoping you would say no, they cleaned everything up and it was all taken care of and stuff like that, and it's not, which is really shocking to me.
Yeah, I just did that platform for the major. Can't say who it is right now,
Right.
but the television thing for 3-part series. And going back up there, I made sure my name wasn't registered at the motels and things like that. But it was really strange. It's been 20 years since I've been up there, and it was different.
Right. Yeah. And a lot. And what's like? What is What do you got? Like, I know you got your we talked in the last interview, the first one, that you have your internet where the squirrel what's the squirrel one again? I keep always forgetting the name of it. Stephen, forgive me.
Oh, Secret Scroll 007.
That's it. I always forget the 007. So yes. So we talked about that. I'm going to leave a link for that too in the description so people can go check that out. Definitely do that. And we already talked about it. So check in episode interview 1. Stephen lets you know all about the business and stuff like that and what he's doing. Great stuff. And so now that we're off of that, I just want to ask you something before I let you go. What are your thoughts on what's going on in Ottawa with the truckers and actually the convoys that are going on? Basically, it's taking off and going all over the world. Well, I want to get your thoughts on this.
Well, first off, I think with the Newsom and Gascon and Mayor Breed out of San Francisco with no masks at the playoffs with the Niners or what have you.
Yep.
And leading to the gal in Georgia. I'm not a fan of hers canceling last year's Major League All-Star game
Right.
and moving it. Is that what they say, do like me, not like thee, or whatever it is. That they're going to open up all this up, and the truckers, they set the precedents for the whole world.
Yes.
I mean, from Denmark to everybody. Still, Australia's doing some things. That old guy they arrested up there as a former cop. I mean, when you're young, you do what it says, paramilitary. You got to do what they say, but is that what? And it's not just because they're truckers; they're working people, they're regular people.
Yep.
Blue collar guys. And the activity and the things they've done. I don't think you're gonna have to see the United States because you guys set precedents up there.
Right.
And I think it's a good thing, and I'm not into. I mean, Trudeau. I know whatever we can talk about. You're a guy up there, but I think that it opened it up, and even the school kids taking their masks off, and
Yeah, I saw that.
I had a mom who's a microbiologist in a hospital for years, and I knew about viruses as a kid and stuff, but it just didn't make sense in a lot of ways. And person I know, very close person I hang out with, got COVID and works in the ER and has immune deficiency and didn't take the vaccine, and she got over it in about 6 days. And I probably caught it because I'm doing this case,
Right.
and I maybe had a little bit of something, but it's a control thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
for
and
sure.
it's about it's about the money and the Pfizer and the Moderna and the big drug companies and all that. I mean, there's so much to it, but I think that I salute the truckers up there because they're the first ones to stand up in numbers. Hey, listen, people, they'll go hunt their food or grow their bed. Don't, people aren't worried about the food. Car parts, we don't get them, we'll deal with it.
Yep.
But let those guys roll. And I think I think that things are going to get changed really quickly, and they are.
They are.
And this crack pipe thing they put into these little drug kits or whatever, and it started. Of course, everything starts in San Francisco, right?
Yeah.
Pelosi and all that, and they were in the Tenderloin. I mean, a lot of my friends are retired cops up there, and they're letting people do this and shoot up and stuff, and then they crack down on it. It's so hypocritical.
Yeah. And I'm proud of them too. I really am. And then I just saw the video a couple hours ago when I was watching, just sitting waiting for my appointment. I was going through videos with Trudeau, and he actually walked out. They were having did you see that video where they were doing their thing, doing their talking and stuff like that, and they started really hammering down on Trudeau, and he just walked out. He just got up and left.
Yeah.
And everybody was just, and I was so happy to see everybody there start like booing them and stuff like that. And even the guy, the main guy listening was kind of giggling. You know what I mean? Like he's like, he couldn't believe it. Like he just walked out. I'm like, this is our leader. This is his
Well, they got,
solution.
you don't get politics unless they got leverage on you.
A hundred
You know,
percent. I said that forever. A
yeah,
hundred
oh yeah,
percent.
that's why they got to follow the narrative that
Yep.
they're told to follow, or no offense, I mean whether it's Epstein or not, Trudeau could have been drunk, and there's two 14-year-old girls that he threw in a bed, and he's passed.
Yep.
It's not good publicity, whatever. They're gonna get leverage on you, so you're gonna do what they say.
Yep.
Otherwise, your career you're gone. And
Yep.
so they got to follow that narrative, and I think it comes to leverage on the politicians. They got something on everybody.
I agree. I've been saying that for years and years. Even when people thought I was crazy, but I'm like, you don't get up that high in government without them having leverage on you. It doesn't happen. Like you don't.
No.
I think people think that if I want to run for president or prime minister, whatever it is, that I can just go and do it. And I'm like, no, there's a game to this. And
there is.
they don't have any leverage on you. You're not going anywhere. They're all
Right.
compromised, and
They all are, absolutely.
yeah. And I was I mean, I wasn't surprised that I saw Trudeau walk out, but I was kind of like, wow, like he's just made, I think, the truckers really dig in now. Like after seeing that, he's not willing to talk. He's not willing to sit down. He's like a little boy at the playground, all upset, and I'm taking my ball and I'm going home. And that's what he did. Like today, I was like, oh my God. And he's running our country.
Sad. That was sad that an 80-year-old guy, and I had a couple situations as a cop where they wouldn't roll the window down, and what do you do? And you just let them go. You don't break the window and pull the old lady out and tow her car, or tow her in the car. There's another day. You just don't. It's not good PC.
Right.
So that was one of the things there, and now they don't. These things come into ordinances, right? They're not laws.
Yep.
So they put an ordinance and no hawking. They can pass that ordinance that day. So, but the example of pulling out, if they would have pulled out some 22-year-old bodybuilder, I think the cops would have had a fight on their hands,
Yep.
The guy was like 4'10".
Yep.
I mean, let him go.
Yeah, I know, and that's the thing. And the media, don't even get us. I'm sure you're the same way. Don't even get me started with media, the way they're reporting all of this, because they're leaning it as some violent. There's violence going on in that, which is totally the opposite of what's going on. There's nothing like that going on, and I think that the police are just trying to find any way by taking the gas cans, and they're doing little dirty tactics to try to instigate. They want nothing more than there to be a fight. I can see it coming a mile away. That's what they want, because then it gives them all the reason to go and do whatever they need to do. But I'm so proud that they're all just staying peaceful. They're staying positive, and it's a positive, peaceful protest. And I think it's driving the government and the police and everybody crazy that they're not reacting the way they want them to.
Right. And then and you can't arrest everybody,
That's what I'm thinking. How are they gonna how are they gonna get rid of them? They can't. Well, I mean, there's too many, and if they do break it up, more truckers are gonna come afterwards.
Yeah.
So
I think you guys have. I don't think we're gonna see anything in the United States. I think, but there's new variant coming out now. They say, and here we go again.
Not another one.
But it's sad for I feel bad for all the small businesses. And all that kind of stuff. I mean, I'm a businessman, and I've had restaurants and stuff, and I've had a gym. There's no way in hell I would have closed up. I would have taken the fines. There's so many attorneys lined up that are going to file lawsuits on these people.
Oh yeah, the courts are going to be busy for a long time after all this with the lawsuits. I can't even imagine. And
it's going to be huge.
And I think that's funny because I do now that because we know if we watch the first interview, we know that you did have a gym and stuff like that. And I think that's funny because I can see you as a gym owner. You wouldn't have closed. I know you wouldn't have. You would have been like, all right, just come and find me.
There's no way it would have happened. But the theory is pretty sharp in some ways. Once you get out of San Francisco, I mean, the cops up there. Matter of fact, the San Francisco PD and the Chief Scott. Anything that's an officer involved shooting or whatever, they broke away from the DA's office for their investigation because it left a couple of cops hanging on some of these things. And we got the Chauvin case and Floyd, and it's still I mean, nobody sits on the guy's neck for 8 minutes. That was murder. Whether he had shit in his body or whatever. I mean, that man was he was killed. I mean, and they should hang out the other guys for standing there like a bunch of idiots watching this. If that that wouldn't have happened more than a minute, we would have pulled our guy off of it, because I've been pulled off of a situation that was a heated situation because when it goes like that, you do lose your mind a little bit. I don't care who you are,
Right.
but you got guys that are going to pull you off and straighten you out right away. And
Exactly.
so it goes back to all that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
let's
Crazy,
talk about that.
crazy. We're in crazy times, Steven, that's for sure. And we're
Oh,
definitely
nothing like
watching.
it.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
watching history
absolutely.
being made, and I don't know which. I bounce back and forth with what's going on in Ottawa. I don't know how it's going to go. I really don't, because I'm hearing now that they're going to be trying to break it up before the weekend. I'm sure you've heard that if you're watching it at all. They're saying that they're going to black it all out. They're going to like cut all the cell phone towers off. So there's a
Oh,
total.
really?
Yeah,
No
that's what they're
way. I didn't
saying.
hear that.
Yep, they're that's what they're threatening, is that they're going to do a total shut the internet down, all the cell phone towers. They're going to black it right out, and
Wow.
they want to break this up before the weekend. That's the last I heard. And then there's also reports of people hearing that there's buses that they're getting ready to bring in a few, like 6 bus loads of police officers.
Oh,
So
I saw 1,800 cops or something. But
yeah. So
yeah, I
yeah,
mean,
I'm hoping that police do not just follow orders and that they realize what's going on here. I want to believe that they will. I do. I think they can see that the government's way overreaching, and I just hope that they don't just go along with it because it's an order. I want to believe they won't. Wishful thinking,
hmm,
maybe. But
that's crazy.
yeah, I mean, I just hope that that doesn't turn violent or anything like that. But
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, that's the word, is that they want to black it right out. So I've been keeping a close eye on Ottawa for sure to see if
let
it.
me know.
Yeah, I will for sure. But I'm gonna let you go. See, I mean, if you want to stay in the background, I can talk to you for a few minutes after I wrap it up. Is that cool?
Yeah, whatever you want to do. Yeah, that's fine.
All right, perfect. So yeah, just I want to thank you so much, Stephen, for doing part 2 with us and coming and explaining talking about your great book. I'm going to make sure there's links at the bottom for your book and for your website, so people can get a hold of you if they have to talk to you about stuff that has to do with that. And I do recommend that everybody picks up this book. It's an amazing read, and you're really going to enjoy it. And it's a case really that is twisted and turns, and it does a lot of great things, and it's a great read. So definitely pick it up from Steven. And you're always welcome to come on my show, Steven. You know that. I mean,
Oh yeah,
anytime you
definitely. We
want.
got we got we got more to talk about later on, huh?
For sure, we do, and I do want to have you back on. Definitely, when some more things that you were talking about, kind of hinting on that breaks. Definitely have you on to talk about that, because that'll be super exciting. And so yeah, if you just want to wait, Steven, in the back, I'm just gonna wrap up the show, and then once I done recording, I'll start chatting with you.
Sure.
All right,
Yeah, I'll be
perfect.
back in a minute.
All right, thanks,
Thank
Steven.
you.
Thank you
Peace
so
out,
much.
brother.
Peace, brother, and I will talk to
All
you
right.
again. You're always welcome.
Thank you.
All right, I'll be right with you, Steven. Well, there we go, everybody. Another great episode with another, like I said, an amazing guest. I love having Steven Sanzeri on and talking about all the great things that he's done in his life and talking about his book. And I tell you, what a crazy story. I mean, I'm glad that I wrote some bullet points down and to kind of go through it, because it's a lot to remember. And that's why I've had to read it several times, because it's so much going on, and the different names and what's in it, kind of all, like I said, it all links together at the end, which we kind of talked about at the end, which is crazy. So I'm glad that I'm so appreciative that Steven came on and talked to us. The first interview where he broke down what the things he's done in his life to get to where he is, and then how he got into this whole Yosemite Sightseer murder, the case for that. And it's just incredible. And so I definitely hope you guys take the time to pick up the book. It's a great read, as I just said, and I think you'll really enjoy it. And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email. It's not hard. Shoot me an email at beenthinkingpodcast@gmail.com. And if you have any questions for Steven about what's in the book or anything like that, about what his business or anything, just shoot me an email and just let me know that you have a question for him. And next time I have him on, I'll definitely run those questions by him for you and get some answers. So I think that'll be really cool if you have any questions about the book. So perfect. And if you have any other ideas that you want to pass by me, definitely shoot me an email. If you want to talk, if you have a good story that you want to talk about, or something to do with the paranormal, the occult. I've had people on it talking about Sasquatch, all kinds of stuff. So if you have a great story or that you want to talk about, also send me an email because I'd love to hear from you. And be great. I love to hear people's stories, their sides of stories. I think that'd be amazing. So definitely email me if you want. And just to remind everybody, as I said at the beginning, I am on the radio 2 days a week at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. And my first show is on Saturday evenings, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time at Studio B. And then on Mondays, I'm on for 2 hours from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that's on Studio A. And you can find me right at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. I have a lot of great guests on there, and we cover a lot of great topics. So I hope you guys check it out and check out all the other hosts there that are doing amazing shows, bringing on amazing guests, and getting the information out there that platforms like this will not let us talk about. Because as soon as you do, they pull your channel down, or they pull your video down, or they pull your comments down. So at least when I'm on the radio show, I can talk about things a lot more openly without fear of being blocked or anything like that. So it's really cool to be there. So please check it out. And just want to wrap it up and thank you guys all for checking it out today, checking out this interview. I'm hoping you're having a great day, great evening, from wherever you are, time zones and all stuff. And definitely remember, I'm going to have a lot of cool guests coming up in the future. I've got like 4 or 5 videos I've already done, interviews, I should say, that I will be putting up very soon with a lot of great guests, great topics. And I'm hoping you'll check those out. So, just remember that everybody has an interesting story to tell. And what makes that story interesting? I say it every time. It's your unique story. And that is what makes it interesting to me. So take care, guys, and I will see you very soon. Peace.